Casey asks, what platform do you think will have the next big innovation, rifles or handguns? What do you think is the biggest flaw in each platform? Rifles are too heavy and handguns are too small to shoot accurately.
And underpowered.
Right.
Handguns do not have good lethality.
That's true.
When you look at
unless you're the one getting shot with them, in which case they have
obviously you don't want to get shot. But
right.
when you look at the statistics of people shot with handgun cartridges, all of them,
right.
with the 357 Magnum starts becoming, all right, maybe. But when you start looking at all 45, all that junk, the reality is,
if you get to a hospital, you will survive.
Something like 80-something% survive.
Yeah.
Even multiple hits.
Right.
Handguns are not good killing devices. They may stop a fight. They are good defense. They're good because you can carry them.
Right.
I cannot appendix carry my M4.
Right.
That's what handguns are good for. After that, handguns are a very dubious value.
There's a reason they really never see military use.
Correct.
I don't think there's any way to predict. I think if there is a major fundamental technological change, it will be in the cartridge concept, and it will thus equally impact rifles and handguns.
Let me turn on my sarcasm flag. So sarcasm flag is enacted, don't quote me on this, but you forgot our perfect opportunity to be shilling for Hudson like we do.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously, you're right. The Hudson's going to be
the Hudson's going to change everything. The entire state of the industry is going to change. All other handguns will become obsolete within the issue. When the first Hudson hits the market, all other handguns become obsolete.
I think they're obsolete just with the Facebook posting from.
Go take your Glock, throw it in the sewer hole, dump it, put the cover on, forget it, because unless it's a Hudson, it's worthless. So you missed your opportunity to show for the people that have provided us absolutely no money or resources to show for.
That's right, they haven't yet.
Sarcasm flag off. No, I don't think anything's going to change, honestly. I think you might see some material and sighting systems changing. We're seeing red dots becoming a big deal on pistols.
Yeah.
That's been going on for a while, and I'm starting to experiment with that.
It's gaining steam.
There might be a there, right? So some stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think we actually might see more change in handguns than rifles.
Okay.
But yeah.
Just in fairness to Hudson, we're really excited about Hudson.
I'm not making fun of Hudson. We're excited about it, absolutely. But it was an opportunity to be shilled.
Yeah.
Why would you give that up? So now we shill for Hudson and that waste company or whatever. But anyway, yeah.
Right. London says, I've asked about this a couple times, still interested.
Oh, I put this in here, honestly. He's asked this, he's tried to get this question in a few times, and I apologize for not adding it. So I felt bad. I'm like, let's get this one in here finally. What
are your opinions on hyperburst and counter recoil weapons? Hyperburst like the SPIW, duplex rounds, AN-94, counter recoil like sort of the AN-94, the AK-107, the AEK-971, etc. Could they have a place in civilian-centered firearms? Keep on being great. Well, we will keep on being great. So we'll try. Legally, these concepts all have problems in the United States because they're all kind of by definition machine guns. Duplex rounds are not.
Except that crazy thing that we saw at SHOT Show that was, what did they call it? Where you pull the trigger and fire 2 rounds simultaneously. What was that called? What was that term? I had a term for it. Volley fire.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So a round that fires 2 rounds simultaneously from one trigger pull out of one cartridge, wouldn't that be volley fire?
Correct. Yeah. Duplex rounds.
So you could get away with a duplex round.
So here's the background on those things, and it's actually appropriate that this question didn't come up until now. I've been reading a book which you might be able to see it, Weapon of Choice, which has a lot of interesting information in it about the development of these programs. And where they came from was in the aftermath of World War II. Serious people looked at weapons technology and development and went, wow, our soldiers cannot hit bupkis. They just, outside of 100 yards, nobody hits nothing.
By the way, that came out after the Civil War, too. The NRA originally, never mind politics, the NRA was originally founded by Grant as a marksmanship organization because the Union soldiers were so terrible with their rifles.
Right. Yep. World War II, same thing. And looking at this technologically, they started thinking, okay, well, how do we make the infantry more effective? Obviously, it doesn't really matter if we give them a more accurate rifle because they can't shoot it in the first place. What if we create kind of this shotgun concept where we want to give mechanically a better chance of making a hit given the assumption that the soldiers will be mediocre shots?
You're increasing the chance of hit. You're increasing the hit probability by increasing the rate of fire dramatically.
Or adopting other things like duplex cartridges.
So that's a rate of fire increaser, really.
It's kind of,
yeah.
Duplex or triplex is when you have more than one bullet in a cartridge case. So it looks like a standard cartridge from the outside, but you actually have 2 or 3 short little bullets nested on top of each other.
It's buck and ball.
Yeah, that's exactly what
they did this back in the muzzle loaded days.
Yeah. And SPIW had some concepts like multiple barrels firing simultaneously and very, very high rate of fire bursts where the last round would be out the barrel before the recoil impulse hit the shooter and changed the weapon's point of aim. And some of this was done with bullets, some of it was done with flechets, because a typical flechet would be about a 10 grain projectile, so you have a lot less recoil being generated there in the first place. Ultimately, there were a lot of mechanical problems getting a gun like this to be combat durable. Also, the problem with the flechets, by the way, was they were in sabots. And so they had a special shredder device on the muzzle to pull the sabot away. And it turned the sabot into micro dust that the soldiers would all inhale and then get horrible lung cancer.
Yeah. Call us if you think you've suffered mesothelioma.
Yeah, exactly that. So in the historical context, that was the purpose. These are developed specifically to be a Band-Aid over poor marksmanship. So what's the purpose or the viability of that in the civilian market? That's an interesting question.
Very minimal.
True, although it would be very interesting to bring a rifle like that to, say, a 2-gun match.
A volley fire gun, the illegal one that's not a machine gun because it's firing 2 rounds. See, the thing is, 2 rounds with the volley fire thing though is 2 rounds from 2 barrels with 1 trigger pull.
Right.
Two projectiles coming out of 1 cartridge. I don't know.
That's not a legal problem. That's just like buckshot.
Yeah, you're right. It would be interesting because when you go to 3-gun and you're like, well, watch my double taps.
Exactly.
Blam, 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 screw you guys.
And that's the interesting point is if I have triplex ammo in a 308 and I need to double tap targets, I only need to fire once, which is exactly the purpose that they were getting at. On the other hand, the other issue with these guns is they didn't really care that much about pinpoint accuracy at long range, and with duplex or triplex rounds, those bullets interact on the way down the barrel and they spread out, and if you say, okay, you need to hit a bullseye at 400 yards, that becomes extremely difficult.
This is apples for oranges, but I can tell you there's absolutely a there, because I have a much higher hit probability with my submachine gun at 1,000 rounds per minute than I do at 400. So when I bring the gun up and I burst, I go at 1,000. The gun's recoil doesn't really impact me until I've already fired 4 to 5 rounds. And this is the same thing. And I've seen this. Even at 200 yards, I am much more likely to get a hit. Yeah. So there is a there.
There definitely is. Yeah. You're kind of trading short-range performance for long-range performance, or the other way around. So yeah, I find it a very interesting concept to play with, but I don't think it would really take off that well in serious marksmanship circles because you basically cannot shoot accurately at long range with these things. That's the trade-off.
Although Vickers did a video where he was hitting stuff at 200 meters pretty reliably.
No, that was
an AN-94, I think.
That's with the early concept guns. Okay. What we've come to now, everyone's seen that stuff is too much of a trade-off. So we get to the other type that you described here, London, counter-recoiling guns, which are generally 2-round burst, and again, set up so that the recoil impact doesn't hit you until after the rounds are fired.
Correct.
However, you're still just as capable of good accuracy with those things. And that's typically a selector switch. You can fire semi-auto, you can fire full auto, or you can fire this super fast 2-round burst. That's how the AN-94 is. That would be a lot more feasible. Those all have legal issues as being machine guns here in the US because they are multiple shots from the same barrel with a single trigger.
Let me throw this out there. I'd love to shoot one of those guys if we could get our hands on one.
God.
We would love to test the concept and haven't had the opportunity.
Absolutely.
All I can do is fall back on some of Larry Vickers' videos in which he did. And I watched him, and he was getting good hits at 250, I think it was.
Oh, I believe it.
And he was getting doubles on it. Yeah. And it made sense. The problem is now you got to take apart a D-milled one.
Yeah.
Or D-Watt. And it's an extremely complex Rube Goldberg device.
The AN-94 is both gas and recoil operated simultaneously because you've got one operating system to cycle the first round and a second operating system to cycle the second round.
Now, the AEK might have more merit in that it's just a counterbalancing system.
That's true. I have never seen one in person. I've never handled one.
I'm actually
Can't
surprised.
really talk about the AEK-970.
I'm really the counterbalancing system is far simpler, and I'm really surprised we haven't seen more of that. Because an equal opposite reaction means you could mitigate recoil.
In theory, but only to a certain extent, because ultimately the only way to do that is with a recoilless rifle, where the problem is ultimately you have a bullet that's leaving the system,
right?
And if everything else in the system is captured, you have to do something to absorb that energy.
You can make it a lot better with a counterbalance.
Yes, yeah, you can definitely make it better.
I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that.
Honestly, I think part of that is the NFA. I think there's no good way for a civilian design team to really be working on something like that because of...
You're right. If you and I could go build one of those today, we would commission it.
Yeah. Stoner was able to go play with machine guns without too much trouble.
And we can't.
You can't do that today.
So that's where it dies.
Yeah.
That's probably it.
Yeah. I'd love to try one, though. The concept definitely has potential. The hurdle to it is going to be making the gun simple and durable and rugged enough to be militarily viable.
I agree.
And that's where the AN-94 failed. That thing is just way too
They did feel them.
In small numbers, special forces guys who can be trusted to deal with them and know how to take care of them. And I think to even maybe more importantly, use them in limited applications. We're going to deploy, shoot all those terrorists in that building, and then come home.
Many rubles, comrade, do not lose or drop.
That too. Yeah, this isn't, you're not deploying that thing to the Somme.
No.
For 3 months straight.
Sure.
You're deploying it to the Bataclan Theater.
And it comes out of its pristine bag.
Right.
It kills a bunch of bad guys, and it goes back in the pristine bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, from Martin. Thank you for making some of the most awesome content on YouTube. Our pleasure, thank you. I have a question on the next page about modern infantry rifles and their operating mechanisms. As far as I know, all infantry rifles developed in the last few decades use a gas piston system, either long or short stroke. Why don't we see any newly developed delayed blowback rifles? And why no new gas direct impingement like the AR? All of the more recent developments like the 416 and the SCAR seem to be short stroke gas piston. The G3 and MP5 were very successful. Is there something that makes delayed blowback inferior or undesirable in a modern infantry rifle? I probably should have read through these more closely before we started, so I had time to think.
I threw that one in kind of as for you.
I figured.
I don't know why we don't see more of the semi-DI type AR-15 approach, because I strongly believe, just from personal experience and what I know from everything I've seen around me, the malignment that goes towards that system is unearned.
Yes.
And it's an excellent system. And so when you say things like it craps where it eats and all that, yeah, those are cute little memes, guys. But the reality is, every gun generates heat, and all of them crap in a place.
Yep.
A piston gun does it at the piston and generates heat at the handguard, which, by the way, we were just shooting a SCAR the other day, and that's hot as hell, hard to hold. The AR does generate the heat in the bolt carrier group. However, it's not where you're holding the gun.
It's also not where the cartridge is.
Correct. And so I don't know why we haven't seen more of this.
That's an interesting question.
And I'm not 100% on board with why we're seeing more short stroke gas piston stuff. By the way, a properly set up DI gun will actually suppress better than a piston gun. It's another weird thing. And we've seen improvements with things like the Gemtech bolt carrier groups and others that allow you to adjust the amount of gas in a bolt carrier group on a semi-DI AR. Mm-hmm. I'm calling it semi, by the way, because the bolt in an AR is actually...
It's a piston.
The bolt in an AR is the piston.
DI guns are the Youngman, the MOS 44 series, and the Hakim.
So that's why I'm saying semi.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we don't see more of that, because I think it really is a fantastic system, and the recoil impulse and many things. It's simple.
Well, let's look at it this way. How many new rifles have actually been developed recently? How many new rifles have been developed since 17 years after the AR-15, which would be when its patent expired, which would be about 1970?
Not many.
The FAMAS, lever delayed blowback.
That is, okay, so there is another delayed blowback system. Good point.
But beyond that,
there's the SCAR, the 416.
Right.
Which, by the way, stay tuned, we're doing work with both of those.
Yes, we are. But not a whole lot more than that. It's not like there's been a huge glut of new...
I think here's what, you know what? I kind of wonder. It's like, in spite of the fact of all the malignment in Vietnam got people killed and all that stuff,
AR is really damn good.
They really work, and they're really excellent. And
it's easier to make minor bit-by-bit improvements to the AR than to try and come up with a brand new platform from scratch.
Like the 416, they did some of the stuff on the 416 for some specific reasons, and we will talk about that when we talk about 416s. And the SCAR was designed because they wanted to have a 308, and the reason they made a 5.56 SCAR was just because, well, if we're going to build this, we'll build the other one. But really, the SCAR should be the 308 version.
Yeah.
And that, I get why they went that way, because of what the gun is. By the way, that's a great rifle.
And FNs liked gas piston systems since they started making the very first semi-auto rifles they ever did.
I totally get that. So, I think it is. I think the reality is, for as much as people like to bitch and whine about the AR is so excellent that it doesn't warrant much of a reason to change it.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people trying to shove pistons on ARs, and with the exception of the 416 and a very select few, they made it worse, not better.
Yeah.
A lot of these piston ARs are worse.
And I think a lot of the adoption of them comes from elements not related to the weapon's actual performance.
So on that last note, you mentioned the FAMAS, which is a delayed blowback gun, which is an interesting point to make. Why
it's
do we?
A pretty unique system.
Well, it is. But why did we see delayed roller kind of just go away? Because it's a pretty resilient system.
It is. It's a very resilient system, and to be honest, I'd have to try and read up on it more.
Could it be?
Could it be
patents or?
That stuff would have been patented in the 50s.
Because that's. I mean, it is hard to make delayed roller guns not work.
I'm trying to think. The fixed barrel is good for accuracy.
You can put wildly varying types of quality of ammunition on; they just run.
Yeah.
You can suppress them fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer as to why delayed roller did not see more.
Yeah.
I don't know. It should. It probably should.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I don't know what the answer to that is.
I wonder if it could even be something as simple as people insisting on a locked system.
Well, I will say this. You know what? You know what delayed roller does not bring to the table very well?
Mm-hmm.
Accuracy. It's sufficient.
That's true.
Let's be realistic. The rotating bolt multi-locking lug AR system.
It's not that the delayed blowback is inaccurate. It's that nothing quite matches multi-lug rotating.
You have to really F up an AR, a multi-lug rotating bolt lock system to have bad accuracy.
Right.
So when we talk about some of the more modern guns we're talking about,
they all use AR.
The SCAR uses essentially a derivative bolt from the AR. The HK416 uses a derivative bolt design. The FAMAS?
No.
What's the bolt?
I don't remember. Shit.
Is it delayed? Is it a rotating bolt? Is it a multiple lug? I stunned him! Oh! This is a day to write down in the history books forever. Ian cannot remember what the bolt is in a FAMAS. Anyways, the SCAR, the 416, they are multi-lug rotating bolt locks, just like an AR-15, because that's what the accuracy is.
Yes.
My inclination, and this may not be the right answer, but it's the one that pops in my head, is delayed roller does not lend itself to that.
That would make sense in that it was totally acceptable in the 50s and the 60s.
4 MOA wasn't fine.
Exactly. When the FAL was fine, the G3 was too.
Yep.
FAL's not fine anymore.
But if you get an AR or a multi-lug rotating bolt locking gun, and it shoots above 2 MOA, you're like, oh, that's broke.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's it. That's probably the answer.
Yeah. Thank you. You've brought shame on my family now.
I have brought shame upon you, Ian, for not knowing. Do I use the term gun Jesus? Did not know what the bullet was on a FAMAS?
Let's not even go there.
All right. It was fun to say, though.
Sergey says, I'd like to know your stance on fixed magnification optics as a primary issue to combat troops. I was a big fan of the Trichicon ACOGs that the Marine Corps issued to all Marines, and even run one today on my carbine. I know you guys have brought up 2.5 power versus 4 power and other magnifications. What is your rationale to sticking to the lower end of the magnification range, given that, in my experience, even 4x is not quite enough to reliably engage a human-sized target at 600 meters under field conditions? In a related question, what is your take on Binden?
All right, let's start with the scope. We have a video coming out, which is not out yet, which may come out after this Q&A or before this Q&A, I'm really not sure, in which we came to the conclusion, and that's not a surprise, this is where I thought we were going to land up, but we needed to test it. The 2.5x primary arms optic is
quite enough.
Not even close to sufficient. 4x is potentially sufficient. You can shoot to 4, you can push to 6. In terms of a fixed optic, magnification optic, I would say that you are sacrificing so much in the way of CQB and we have defined earlier in this Q&A that actual combat ranges tend to be 100 yards or in or less, you are then at a great disadvantage at 50 yards with a fixed 4X optic, and therefore you need another sighting system on the gun, a la the M27 IAR has a piggybacked RMR on top of the ACOG, for example, or you could have an offset sighting system that's no longer ambidextrous, or you can go with a variable. But if you put just a fixed 4X optic on your gun, once the requirement gets inside 100 yards, or worse, within 50 yards, you are really, really behind the 8 ball.
And in that way, that's what the 2.5 was a decent compromise for.
I would agree.
It was slower up close. It was not enough magnification for long range, but at that 50 to 100, it was not bad. That was where its strength was.
Yep. But if you're going to go fixed, you need a backup that's something that's applicable for CQB, or you need to think about variable, in my opinion. And for me, the primary arms optic, which is a whole other video, was neither fish nor fowl.
Right.
Yeah. The Binden. All right, I'll tell you this right now. I don't know if
you can't do Binden.
I don't know if it's a physiological thing or not, but I'll tell you right now, Binden screws my stuff right up. I can't do it. I can't aim with it. I can't hit anything with it. I absolutely despise the concept. Screw Binden to hell. I don't ever want to try to use a Binden concept.
We played with that Armson OEG.
Yeah.
And that was a disaster on fire.
And I've tried it with ACOGs where you put like a cover on the ACOG and try to bend it. Everything looks screwball to me. I can't hit anything with it. I absolutely despise it.
I can do it. What I find is interesting is it only works as long as you don't think about it too hard. What I found very interesting with that Armson OEG was the moment you tried to focus on the dot,
which you should never do,
it'd go boop and disappear.
Well, you should never focus on the dot. When you're shooting a red dot or anything, you should focus on the target.
If you try to mentally focus on it, and because on the Armson, it's a white dot. And especially in bright light, that thing can be kind of wonky and hard to see. And if you tried to see it, it would run away.
Reflex sights are like that too. Or the old reflex sights, I should say.
So it works for most people, I think. It's not optimal.
I've had 0% success with Binden. 0%. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, 0%.
I think you're an outlier with that.
Okay.
Even I have managed to make it work, which makes me think it's some weird physiological thing.
I have better than 20/20 vision, and Binden concept just eats my lunch, man.
Yeah.
I'd be better off closing my eyes and hoping for the best. I'm not kidding. I think I might hit the target soon. Yeah.
Well, in this context, I think what Sergey is getting at is Binden, with an ACOG, an adequate close-range substitute? Your answer to that would be totally no.
Well, you're going to even if it is a physiological issue and there's a certain percentage of people that can't do it, then it is not an acceptable option for a military application because you're going to have people with that. And even if it is capable, even if you can run it, it's
not optimal.
It is a subpar, I'm doing this only because I have to thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Jeremy says, my question is about rifle camouflage. During recent wars, the U.S. decided to allow soldiers to spray paint their rifles for better camouflage in the field. Additionally, some rifles that the military purchased came from the factory in camo colors. Do you think spray painting will continue for wars to come, or will the U.S. and other countries settle on some new type of coating? Spray painting's how it's going to happen.
I think there'll be new coatings, and there's all this stuff you can do to your gun. There's the newest, coolest unobtainium, whatever protective coating, and you can get them pre-camouflaged. And then you bring out your cool desert smock, and you get deployed to the forest.
And then you spray paint your gun.
And then you get out your rattle can and you spray paint the gun. I think that some of that stuff will happen, but the reality is rattle can doesn't hurt the gun. It's easy to do. It's easy to apply. It's easy to take off.
Super cheap.
I love doing it. I like rattle can guns. I rattle can a lot of my guns tan just so they don't fry my face in the desert. Seriously, it helps with that too.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going away. I think they should be allowed to do it. And I think the need to have the camouflage applied to the environment you're in is too dynamic to do anything other than let them to change it when they need to.
Okay.
How's that?
Probably not going to issue guys 3 different rifles. The Arctic rifle, the desert rifle, the forest rifle.
No, but here's some cans of paint, rattle can the gun, good to go.
Yeah.
It's super easy to do too.
Yeah,
super easy.
All right. Matthew says, per your PGO shotgun home defense ultimate weapon video, I've been thinking, since the double build coach gun performs so well in everything but reloads, do you think that Chiappa triple threat might actually be the best home defense shotgun out there? It has all the simplicity of a coach gun, but with 3 barrels, you've got an extra shot.
Well, I think the idea of the coach gun is, we proved this, it's absolutely fantastic if you only need 2 rounds. The problem is do you only need 2 rounds?
Right.
Statistically speaking, you probably do only need 2 rounds. So therefore, if you were to wait, if you were to have what's the word I'm looking for?
If you were gonna,
what do you call it?
A wager.
If you were, what do you call it when you put a bet out and you?
A wager.
No. When you were to make your bet less risky.
Hedge your bets.
If you're going to hedge your bets, thank you. I thought I was going to stump you twice. If you were going to hedge your bets, if you liked the idea of the double-barrel coach gun being really definitively the fastest for 2 rounds, hedge your bets with a triple threat. I think the triple threat really does bring a thing to the table.
It's expensive.
It is.
Does it at some substantial cost.
However, it does give you a 3rd round, and if you want to go with statistics and wager that you're not going to need more than 3 rounds, it would be the fastest option.
Yeah.
However, that means you have 3 rounds.
And that thing's a little clunky to reload.
Although I don't think it's. This is one of those instances where I first saw it, I'm like, well, that's a ridiculous, retarded thing. And then I used one, and I'm like, no, this isn't all that stupid. Yeah. So I would say that if you wanted to go that path, a 3rd round is a 3rd round. It's like barning your gun. You got a 17-round mag, you load one in the chamber, you got 18. Will that 18?
Real downside to that.
Will that 18 save the day? In most situations, you only need the first 2 or 1. But you know what? It might.
Sure.
And so that 3rd round of the triple threat might. So I would say that it's not crazy.
I think the downside to it is the cost. Because that thing's like $1,300, $1,500. It's a lot of money for that 3rd shot. And to me, a lot of the beauty of the coach gun is that it's a low cost of entry.
Well, yeah, true. I don't know about that. Mine isn't. But
if you had I think the calculus changes. If you've got $1,500 for a defensive shotgun.
I'm going to say something that's going to
maybe I go with a good Benelli auto.
I'm going to make a lot of people cringe real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you buy one and then test it out, this is the caveat.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it works. A magazine-fed Saiga or Weber. When you get one of those that work, those things are of variable quality control. I have one that works. When you have one that works and you've tested it out and put your time in to make sure it works, those things are absolutely devastating.
That's true.
And on the right gas setting, they will fire everything.
Yeah.
So my answer would be a vetted Vepr 12 or Saiga magazine fed semi-auto.
Which is putting you into that same cost bracket as a triple threat.
But man, those things are incredible.
Or you wait until triple threats all get blown out to CDNN and you buy them for $4.99.
So what you do with one of those Saigas is you set the gas setting to birdshot.
Yep.
And if you want to shoot slugs, you realize you're decreasing the lifespan of the gun.
Mm-hmm.
But you can shoot a lot of slugs on the birdshot setting, and it's just going to recoil heavier. But that means you could put birdshot in it, which you don't want for defensive loads, obviously. Buckshot, dubious buckshot, slugs, and they will all fire out of that gun.
Yeah.
And boy, you could put a red dot on it.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of close range.
And a light.
Kick-ass.
Those things are unbelievable,
Yeah.
devastating guns.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be my choice.
All right.
Yeah.
Close. Should I get a coach gun? No, you should get this.
Vepr 12 with a red dot and a light and a vet it out. Yeah. Well, I think that is the right answer.
Yeah.
And we did not test that in the video.
All right. Next category, World War II. We're on to page 5 here now. From Joe, if you had the choice between being placed in the Pacific Theater or the European Theater during World War II, which would you pick and why? Also, what rifle and pistol combination would you choose from the era? And just for fun, what combination would you choose from present day?
Well, I would go to the Pacific Theater, Hawaii, and I would be a cook. But no, let's be realistic. I understand what he's asking.
Sure.
Now,
that is an interesting contrast.
Let me give this. I think I'm statistically right on this, and you can validate this, or I can stump you again. I believe.
Just not going to let that go.
I believe that. I believe the KIA ratio in Europe is worse than the Pacific. Your chances of coming back from Europe not dead were lower.
Mm-hmm.
However, the psychological effect of the Pacific was intense.
Yes.
You were dealing with a very foreign enemy.
Yep.
In Europe, as bad as the Nazis were for a lot of the things they did, well, I know people can go, oh, they're not all Nazis. Okay, fine. But as bad as the Germans were in terms of the Wehrmacht and the Nazis were in terms of how they approached things,
mm-hmm.
they did treat the warfare against the Western allies.
And everyone in Europe kind of had the same attitude towards war and combat.
Well, they treated the Western allies
True.
under the Geneva Convention rules,
right.
for the most part.
Right.
There were instances where things went awry, But for the most part, if you were captured, you probably weren't going to get executed. You were probably going to get a Red Cross bucket, and you were probably not going to be tortured. Probably.
And you didn't really have Germans surrendering and then hiding a hand grenade and blowing up a whole group.
No.
If you surrender, you're surrendering.
And the Germans were more likely to fight in a more conventional way, and when a battle was lost, they would either surrender or retreat.
Yeah.
Japanese had this very Bushido, really screwed up thing, God Emperor thing, and they truly believed that they were fighting as an emissary of God himself on Earth. Mm-hmm. Even though the Germans were, some of them were frenzied, the Japanese were a step above that. And they had fought a war against China and done horrendous things for a long time before encountering the Americans.
Yeah.
They had no compunction. And I'm not talking about special forces or we're not talking like the Japanese SS. The Japanese military had no compunction against war crimes.
Right.
Or doing horrific things. Therefore, Americans would suffer the same horrific things as anyone else.
Yeah.
And they would blow themselves up or do whatever they needed to. They would kill themselves. They would bayonet kids or whatever. And the psychological effect of that in the Pacific Theater as an American GI in that war was horrific.
You were a lot more likely to come home with nasty PTSD, I think.
I think so. So I would say that in spite of the fact that your chances of coming home not dead were worse from Europe, I would pick Europe.
I'd pick Europe.
Yeah.
You know what? When you go on R&R in Europe, go to Paris.
That's
or
true.
Wherever, or London.
Your R&R there was like, well, you get to go hang out in the back and not get malaria today.
Yeah. Food and water were better in Europe.
Everything was worse.
And then probably going to be in combat more often and for longer periods of time.
Yes.
In the Pacific, it was nothing. Holy shit! Horrific battle.
Horrendous, horrible stuff.
And then back to nothing.
Yeah.
I'd pick Europe.
You know, I know it's just a HBO series, but contrast Band of Brothers with the Pacific.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job of this.
Yeah.
First of all, they both are historically
pretty good.
They're pretty right. They're one of the best you could ever see.
Yeah.
And when you watch Band of Brothers, yeah, they're in terrible conditions. They're in the Bastogne. They're freezing. The war is horrible. You're getting hit by artillery. Bob just literally got turned into red mist.
It is a war anywhere you are.
However, then you watch the Pacific, and they've got kids with bombs strapped to them. There's women running down the hill getting blasted by the Japanese because they're trying to run away from their thatch hut in Okinawa.
Yeah.
It is psychologically horrific.
Yeah.
Now, on the other flip note, some American divisions had to uncover and found concentration camps.
Yeah.
And that's pretty psychologically traumatic too.
Yeah.
However, that's not traumatic. That's traumatic in a different way.
Yeah.
It's not I don't know. I can't answer for that. I never had to experience that, and hopefully most of us will not.
Yeah.
But I think seeing what you saw in the Pacific was more likely to leave psychological scars that may not ever be able to heal in any way.
And more importantly,
yeah.
German guns make better souvenirs.
You do bracket.
I'd rather come home with a Sturmgewehr than an Arisaka.
Always comes back to that too. Bring back the Luger. It's going to be more valuable than that crap Type 14 Nambo. No, there's truth to that too. But I really think the psychological element of the Pacific, the psychological impact of all warfare is horrendous. I don't want to undermine any of that, but the psychological impact of the Pacific was worse. It was worse, and I think we're in agreement on that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, rifle and pistol combination from the era. I've got an easy answer for this.
Sure.
I will take a Sturmgewehr, and I don't care what pistol. I'm not going to use the pistol. Whatever. Make it some really expensive, cool collectible Luger that I can just sell when I get home.
So what are we asking about, value or viability?
I think he's getting at which one would you choose if you were then in said combat.
In combat? I'm going to accuse the German thing again, but I'm going to go with the Sturmgewehr.
It's just the best gun in the war.
Well, the Sturmgewehr and a P-38.
Yeah, okay.
And which, by the way, the reason I picked the P-38 is it's essentially the precursor to the Beretta. They're the same gun. They're ostensibly the same gun.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to have 8 rounds of 9mm than 7 plus 1 round of 45. I think it's easier to hit with.
Okay.
And the Sturmgewehr is irrefutably the future, and having it then would have been the best rifle. Simply put.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's...
If it wasn't that, my fallback would be an M1 and a 1911.
Okay. I just realized if you're making me choose a pistol, it would be a high power.
It's a good choice too.
Got more 9mm.
Except they fall apart in your hands.
They do, which is really strange.
He's had a couple of them literally
The slide
fall
sound
apart
comes out
on the clock.
Yeah, I don't understand why. All right, Michael says, you guys have talked before about how the Eastern Front of World War II was cataclysmic, I think to quote Carl. Your Old West vignettes were great videos. I know that traveling to locations is likely out of the question. Is there any plan or any way in the future you guys can cover clashes or larger battles on the Eastern Front?
Great question for a couple reasons. One, let me say something I just said earlier. When I mentioned that Europe was less psychologically traumatic, I was meaning the Western
front of it, yeah.
The Eastern Front is a absolute horror. It's a horror show for 4 years of an incredible magnitude.
And as I recall, R&R on the Eastern Front was none.
I don't know, but it was a horror show for everyone.
Yeah.
There are movies that represent that. What was that movie I sent you? The Russian one about the kid in the village.
Is that Come and See?
Come and See. That movie's weird. It is almost sort of surrealistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's surrealistic in a way. I'm not going to recommend it, but I'm going to recommend it, and here's why. It is not a war movie. It is a movie that is a surrealistic way to interpret the Eastern Front from a Russian child's villager's eyes and the psychological damage he experiences by being there through it.
Yeah.
And that movie, when it was done, I was like, I'm not kidding. I'm like, I don't think I need to see this again. The movie itself is traumatic in a way that's hard to describe. And I think the horrors of the Eastern Front and the cataclysmic magnitude of the battles that occurred are insurmounted in all of human history.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm interested in it.
Right.
It's not because it's German or Russian. It's because that's where the biggest, most incredible war ever occurred.
To put it in context for Americans, the Eastern Front is geographically approximately the same as a front running from Florida to Maine, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River.
The entire east coast of the United States engaged in warfare, crushing each other with every possible thing they have.
Fought all the way to the Mississippi, and then all the way back to the coast.
With every example of horrible inhumanity towards man on both sides.
Yeah.
In a way that I hope to God we never see again. But that's why it is interesting. If you are interesting in a very dark way, but it's interesting in that if you are a student of warfare, I do not understand how you would not be interested in it.
Yeah.
And I find it very myopic as an American, how much interest and emphasis we put on the Western Front,
right.
Which, and no offense to our GIs and veterans that fought and won that side of the war, was a walk in the park by comparison.
Yeah.
And I say that only because you have to contrast them.
Right.
When you look at the Eastern Front and you look at the Western Front, you're like, yeah, there really is no comparison.
It's kind of like the U.S. involvement in World War I.
Yeah.
We make a big deal out of our 6 months of active combat. Yeah. There was a lot of other stuff going on.
Well, we did more in World War II in that regard. But and this does not undermine the men that died, Americans, that died fighting this war, and the Americans did fight. For the men that fought on the Western Front, that was a war.
Absolutely.
I'm not underestimating that. I'm just thinking when you put it in context of magnitude, Eastern Front is
huge.
Oh, it's decibel levels higher.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to. Yeah.
We would like.
It literally leaves me a little speechless.
Yeah, apparently.
It's hard to describe. When you start reading this and really diving into this, it's just an absolute horror show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And large on a scale that's out of context to everything else.
Correct.
We would love to visit the Eastern Front. Hopefully one of these days we will be able to.
Yes.
We'll see.
I don't think there's as much there to see as I'd like to see, that would hope to see.
Yeah.
But I would like to go to Volgograd.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, was Stalingrad.
Right.
And see Pavlov's house and the hill and all the stuff, and see the train station,
the iconic elements,
and see Kursk,
Stalingrad,
and see the Gumrock Air Station, and all, because that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to go there is not to glorify it, because there's nothing to glorify. It's horrible. What I want to see is to be able to go there and put it in context in my mind from what I've read.
That's something I discovered in EPRA recently. Was all these things, you just understand them so much better once you've actually seen them with your own eyes and set foot on the field.
And I can say I've experienced that in a different way here in Arizona, in that I've gone to Indian war battlefields. I've been to Cage Butte. I've been to a bunch of ERPS locations. I've been to other Apache warfare sites. Mm-hmm. And when you see them and stand there and look at the hill, your ability to perceive and understand what happened at the battle is dramatically changed.
Yeah.
And so to read about Stalingrad is one thing. To go to Volgograd and walk the train station or walk past that house and look at the street would give you a much greater understanding.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I want to go.
Yep. Of course, it's Russia. We don't speak Russian. We don't read Russian. We can't really like half-ass our way through reading Russian. It's a complex trip to set up.
It would be awesome if we could pull it off.
Yep.
And I would absolutely love to bring in-range content from there.
Absolutely.
So hopefully would be my answer.
Yeah. All right. We have 3 more questions.
General questions.
Yes. Ed says, I know this is a late question. What do you guys think about the show Weapons Hunter? I have mixed opinions on it, but I'm fairly impressed that the guys recreated the Stinger like machine gun.
I should stop saying no offense to anyone watching because people will inevitably be offended. I've seen some of it online, and my interpretation of it was utter, complete garbage and crap.
But you have to admit, that idea to use this to do the Stinger was pretty cool.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolute genius. And why is it genius?
It'd be genius because I'm the one who suggested it to them.
You suggested that idea.
Yeah, I talked to one of their producers on the phone before they did the 2nd season. And he was looking for ideas and stuff, and I suggested to them that the Stinger would be a perfect thing. There are no surviving Stingers. The Stinger, by the way, is a Browning aircraft machine gun with a bipod and a Garand buttstock added to it to turn into a very high rate of fire light machine gun. It was done by a couple of guys in the Marine Corps, as I recall. They were used in the Pacific, and they built like half a dozen of them. What's really impressive is the guy who came up with the idea actually won a Congressional Medal of Honor for actions engaged in with his Stinger machine gun.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's like kind of the sad side of that. So you make me think of Schofield, who designed his pistol and then later killed himself with it.
Yeah, it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
At any rate, so I'd love to take credit for this Stinger bit in Weapon Hunter. I would be happy to not take credit for anything else in Weapon Hunter.
Well, I'm not trying to deprecate that, but I've only seen some of it.
I find the show obnoxious.
It's terrible to me.
Yeah.
You've had more interaction with quote unquote mass media and people fishing for regular program shows.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some. Mm-hmm. I've met some of these people, and it has only helped reinforce my disdain for the mass media. And that they look frequently for the lowest common denominator garbage.
Yeah.
And I have no idea about the host of that show. I can't speak about him, but they frequently find people that are colorful in the wrong way.
I don't know that there's anything negative I would say about.
I don't know him. Well, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about other gun shows.
I'm not, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think in his case, what they found was a person who has no particular expertise in firearms. And they kind of promote that.
Doesn't that make a ton of sense?
They kind of promote that as the point of the show being that he is on this journey of exploration and learning, which is, okay, fine, but that's, to me, counterproductive to the goal of providing good information.
You know what I heard when you said that? Let me wallow in someone else's ignorance.
Yeah.
That does not appeal to me.
Yeah.
I would rather, and I'm not saying we're subject matter experts on anything or everything. I'm not saying that. But I would rather listen to someone, and hopefully you're listening to us for this reason, because we bring something to the table that we show our work.
Right.
You can disagree with our conclusions. You can disagree with what we say. Please do. If you need to, tell us. But
we'll tell you why we're taking a position.
Tell us the right way. Show your work. Right. Do it courteously and respectfully. And a debate is desirable. Mm-hmm. In fact, I try to encourage it on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
I put up stuff and we have discussions. We don't have arguments. We have discussions. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
But all I want is show your work.
Right.
When we make statements, hopefully we're showing our work, even if you disagree with it.
The problem is with a show like Weapon Hunter, there is no work that went in. Okay, that came out wrong. There is no supporting evidence or context that goes into it. And with most of these TV shows, the sum total of it is, woohoo, this is awesome! Right. There's nothing, you can't have a discussion based on that because there's no factual foundation to it.
The reason, like this goes back to the What Was Done Review project. When we're done with that project, we're going to tell you we did this, 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 this. We tried that, it failed. We did this, we did that. We already told you the optic failed on one of the guns. We're doing this because, and this is how we came to the conclusion through this mechanism.
Right.
You could disagree with that.
Sure.
But we put real diligent effort into why we came to that conclusion.
Right. And if your goal is something different than ours, you may very well be correct.
Yeah.
For your purposes,
totally,
that may be the right answer, and our answer may not be. And we can explain why.
And the other part of this, and this is a hard thing, even for us sometimes, I maybe me more than you, but it is not meant or should never be an emotional thing.
Right.
So, like, for example, if you got emotionally tied to the primary arms optic, I like this concept. I will not let go of it, even though it failed me. I'm like, that's silly. Here's what you do. Tried it, didn't work. Boop. Next
thing.
This worked. Boop. This one did work. Cool. That's the way.
Yeah.
Iterative efforts to the right answer. And there's that's showing your work.
Going back to the question briefly.
Yeah, sorry.
One of the other problems with all of these TV shows is they set up false premises, like we're going to go hunt down this. Well, okay, the fact of the matter is you know exactly where it is. It's right here, because anyone who's serious in the collecting world will tell you, oh, you want, a Loudon Boomer 3000. Well, this museum has one, and those two dudes have them, and this guy actually has one, and he shoots his.
Yeah.
And so I make a phone call. I'm now a weapon hunter. I have hunted a weapon and found it by calling the guy who the community knows has the thing. But that doesn't work for a TV show. They all are based on this conceit that you have to go through this process of hunting down each individual part. And that's like from the 60s. Well, you had to do everything by magazine, one ad, and word of mouth, and where do we find this? Today, okay, maybe the process exists, but it's a couple emails.
Yeah.
A couple emails doesn't make for a good show.
What you're saying, what I'm hearing, is it all starts off on the premise of some form of false drama.
Yes, exactly.
And it doesn't need to be that. If it's an educational or intelligent thing, false drama is actually is counterproductive towards your goals.
Yeah. And the people that help in those shows don't ever get credit. And I'm not referring to myself here. I know one guy who provided a huge amount of the content for one of their episodes. And he runs a business doing what he does. And every time these shows, and in fact, they did do it to me on Sons of Guns, they refuse to promote anyone else's business, even if it's relevant.
Yeah, I think they referred to you as weapon collector.
I was a collector. The only way you can actually get any recognition out of those shows is if you show up in a branded shirt that they can't somehow edit out. Because if you talk about your business, it will get edited out and boop, on the editing room floor. They may make promises that, we'll talk about we'll help promote your restoration business. No, they won't. They don't care. In fact, I don't know why. But
they'll lie to you?
They're actively opposed to helping anyone else.
They'll lie to you?
Yes.
That's astonishing.
Yes.
I can't believe that.
I've been watching producers and camera guys around a table going, okay, at the next break, when we go from commercial break 4, when we come back, we need to have a malfunction going into commercial 4 to get people hyped up. So they sit through all these freaking obnoxious ass commercials. What should we have break? We're about to do the live fire. What do we want to have break? Should we have a case jam? Should we have it blow up? Should we have the charging handle fall off?
How do we paint that to be super dangerous and then have him at risk to clear it?
Exactly.
Even though it's like literally a piece of duct tape holding it in or something.
Right, and then we're going to manufacture this malfunction. But of course, on tape, it's all played up to look like it just happened naturally out of chance, and oh my God, they might not make their deadline. Well, guess what? When the show started, they had the finished gun here, done, and then they work it backwards. All of these shows are obnoxious to me.
The other way,
that probably came across.
No, I think it's absolutely true, and it's like the other way to be on that show and get a claim is to rape kids.
Yes.
Or just be a complete scumbag lawbreaker.
Yeah.
That's another great way to do very well in that TV show.
I'll tell you what, when you make your casting choices deliberately based on who is the most personally dramatic.
That was the colorful word I used earlier.
Yes. Then guess what? You tend to get an abnormally high ratio of complete scumbags.
And you can't get someone to do the kind of stuff you want if they have integrity.
Right.
So, for example, let me just say this, and you guys...
Yeah, leave your dignity at the door if you want to be involved.
I can tell you, and I think you'd be the same way, if I was a part of something like this, which, by the way, I've had contact with some of this in the past myself.
You have NDAs that we're not sure if they're still in force.
So I can't talk about it. But I've had some contact with this. So just say, I have to tell you that you have to take my faith on this, or take my word as faith, in that I have had contact with this industry before. Okay? And so they will do things like, okay, you're going to go say this, or you're going to make this happen. And my answer to that is, no, I will not do that. And you know what happens when you do that?
You don't get on the show.
You're not on the show. So if you're the guy that will do that, that tells you what that show is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. A guy named Iraq says, have you tried hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades on your Vive? Your Vive. If so, what do you think? If not, I would strongly recommend it.
I have. Okay, it is a very well-made gun simulator.
Okay. On VR, by the way.
It's a VR, virtual reality. Remember, I did 2 episodes about Onward VR, which I need to revisit that. There's a lot going on in Onward VR. I need to redo that. There's going to needs to be Onward VR Part 2. There also needs to be, by the way, Practice Sim VR 2, which allows you to do Steel Challenge, USPSA, and it's really cool. Okay. It's beta, or alpha, or it's beta, but it's really cool. I have done this game, Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades, and it is a very well done gun simulator. Now, I know he started adding some elements that are more just gun simulator. And what I mean by this is gun simulator is...
You describe this as a VR version of an indoor shooting.
That's what it was, or at least has been up until recently. So what it is you could take an M4, you could put a different sighting system on it, you could put a magazine in. It kind of really is pretty good at teaching you how the gun functions and works.
Okay.
And then you could shoot at stuff at this indoor range, and then you could pick up a Beretta, and you could put a red dot on it, put in a magazine or an extended magazine. You can augment the guns, all stuff, realistic stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you can simulate shooting the gun with those accessories on it, and then you're done. Now, here's the thing. If you do not have a lot of guns or access to guns or don't get to shoot very often, it's pretty cool because it is a gun simulator and it's a well-done gun simulator. It doesn't appeal to me. And what appeals to me about Onward is not a gun simulator. Onward is a combat squad-level simulator. I don't care about the gun. The gun is just part of it.
Could be a ray gun and then Onward would be just as good.
It probably would. No, it's not. They do a good job of that. But it's not a gun simulator, it's a combat sim, and I'm more interested in that.
If you can take all the bits from 3H, but they're actually in your closet, and you go, I'm going to put this red dot on.
Right.
And then actually go out and shoot the VR.
And I realize we are in an unusual circumstance within range and Forgotten Weapons that we get to handle and deal with a lot of interesting, unique guns.
Yeah.
It makes handling and playing with unique guns and gun configurations in VR not appealing to me. But I would tell you that if you do not have such an opportunity, it is a cool sim, and I would recommend it. And I agree with your recommendation. It just doesn't appeal to my interests.
Okay.
Make sense?
Fair.
Okay.
Last question.
Is this 3 hours?
It must be. I think it's next week already.
All right.
From Adam.
We didn't even take them all. We couldn't.
God, no.
There was 225 of them.
Yeah, okay. I can't do it. From Adam, I really enjoyed the Faxon Q&A series. Have you guys considered doing something similar with someone in the night vision and thermal industry? I think it would be very informative and interesting. Thanks for all the great content. That would be awesome.
Have not considered
totally need to do that.
I would love to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of confusion around thermal and night vision, and I think it would be another opportunity, just like with Faxon, to clarify so much of this stuff that people really don't understand.
Now, we don't really have any contacts personally.
This is easily fixable.
If you are one, or if you know one, hook us up. Let's talk.
If you're part of the thermal or night vision industry, whatever that means, please contact us. Email us at info@inrange.tv or through Facebook on our InRange page. And we would absolutely love to do a Faxon type series on night vision and or thermal. So that would be awesome.
Yeah. We want to find someone who is a subject matter expert and we can peg with all of the good, in-depth, practical, realistic questions.
So we're not just considering it, we're actively soliciting it as of right now. So please, let us know.
And we know if you're still watching at this point, you're a pretty serious viewer or listener, because if you are one of our Patreon contributors, you might be listening to this as a podcast and not see the fact that I'm pointing at the screen right now.
One of our perks for the Patreon supporters, $1 and above, the lowest level and up, is we turn stuff like this that's audio friendly into a audio podcast.
Yeah.
So you can download it through an RSS feed straight to your favorite podcasting app on your Android or iPhone thingy, and it becomes a podcast. And you can listen to this in your car on your 4-hour commute down whatever horrible freeway you happen to be on. And it's a way to consume some of our audio-friendly information in a more palatable way. If you can't do that, we totally understand, but supporting us on Patreon is important, as this is a viewer-supported only endeavor.
100%.
We're not accepting any ad revenue from YouTube or from any sponsors. We do get some ad revenue from Full 30.
Yes, there's no way to demonetize but still be on that.
If we could, I would at this point, to be honest. But we are completely viewer-supported, and really the percentile of what comes from Full 30 versus Patreon is tiny, worlds apart. So we have to be very thankful for our Patreon supporters. You've done an amazing thing in keeping InRange alive, and not only alive, but thriving. So thank you for doing that. If you can't do that, please consider subscribing to our channels on YouTube, Full 30, Facebook. I'm trying to grow Facebook. Facebook's almost up to 10,000 subs.
And you know what? We post all of these videos in their full length with no ads on Facebook.
I know you may be anti-Facebook, but if you're not, go there because I actually do a lot of stuff on Facebook.
Yes.
We have really broad conversations with our viewers there.
I can hardly keep up with it.
There's
You
a lot
post a lot of stuff on
I'm
Facebook.
very active there.
Yeah.
I would be as active on Twitter, but I can't do it in 140 characters. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So anyways, please consider doing that. If nothing else, share our content with your friends and stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys.